All right, all right, all right. We got a show for you. LA Kings content at its premium coming up. We're talking stuff going around the Pacific, a bunch of AHL signings, getting into some major fan Q&A, and then future talent among the LA Kings. You know us boys here at Hockey Royalty. You're going to be throwing it down tonight. Like, subscribe, stay tuned, and let's kick it. All right, guys. How you guys doing? It's been a week. Some good content coming out. A little bit of news, and just that much closer to the beginning of hockey. Russell, what's going on, my man?
Man, yeah, we're about 2 weeks away, I think, from the rookie face-off up in San Jose. So we're getting there. It's getting down to the nitty-gritty here.
Yeah, we're starting to get into that hockey weather here. It's almost like pullover, maybe hoodie season approaching here in the fall in Western New York. So it is, it's exciting times.
I know we were talking a little bit about it. Football season's also upon us, which means hockey season's not too far behind. I just finished my 4 fantasy drafts. Russell's got one for his work coming up. Joe, you said you're in your one league, but you're trying to work on a couple hockey leagues, man. Like, how's that coming for you?
Yeah, I got a few hockey leagues. 2 of them are keeper league. Well, one's a keeper league. One's kind of a borderline keeper dynasty. We've got some prospects. So I've got some off-season trades, pre-draft trades, and I'm kind of working on right now to shore up the keepers as we head into the season. So I lost in the finals in that dynasty one last year. So it was kind of emptied the tank to try to get there, and it was worth it though.
Yeah. Well, who you keeping this year?
There's a number of guys on that team, but just offhand, Kopitar's one of them, Jack Eichel's one of them, Lindholm, Rasmus Dahlin, of course, as you know, I'm a big fan of his, Elias Pettersson, Tim Stützle. So I've got, it's a decent crop of young guys. I'm going to try to fill out the rest of the roster now with this draft.
So you don't really like Jack Eichel. You're just hoping your fantasy team does better. That's what's going on.
That is part of it. Don't get me wrong.
Well, good here. Yeah, like my 4 drafts going back and forth, couple 2 quarterback leagues, some big money leagues going around work. So did a lot of stuff there and ready for week 1. And then we can get into it here in the Pacific, around the Pacific. So a little bit of news coming out of the West Coast here. Vegas trades for Adin Hill, and then Ducks acquired Dmitry Kulikov from Minnesota for future considerations, which means probably a bag of pucks or a stack of Coca-Cola. So what do you guys think about these moves here? Obviously, Vegas needed to with Leonard dropping down. Adin Hill really didn't prove much to me last year with San Jose, but he's a serviceable goalie in the pipes, in my opinion. Does that differ for any of you guys? Anyone want to take this?
To me, I think for the Adin Hill, I think it's probably a hint that Laurent Brossoit may not be healthy to start the season in Vegas. I tend to think Hill's a little bit of a better goalie. I agree. He did not have a great year last year, though. I think he's a better goalie than Brossoit. I kind of like the Thompson Hill as a duo if they were to ride with that. I mean, it's very, very young and very unproven, and it may not go well, but I don't know. I don't hate it, to be honest. But like I said, I think it may hint that Brossoit could be he's unhealthy and he may not start the season healthy.
Yeah, it's not going to mean much in terms of affecting, I think, their overall stand. It's good to have a nice backup with Logan Thompson. I mean, they'll have a decent goaltending duo, but that team's not going to really rely on goaltending or really defense really at all. As long as they stay healthy, they should be able to score 3-4 goals a game easily. So, I mean, Adin Hill, he does have some experience against the Kings. I think it's 7 games against them in his career, and he's 4-2-1 record. So, I think that's more games than any other team that he's played against. So, there's some experience there and something to watch if they do end up starting him for opening night too.
Yeah, it's gonna be something interesting here. Coming in with all that, and I truly love what's going on here with the Kings, and it just seems like these are making little minute moves in the Pacific. To be honest with you, I don't really know who Dmitry Kulikov is. So, and that's probably why he was traded for future consideration. So what's going on here is just Anaheim trying to get above the cap or what?
It's a depth. I think it's just a depth signing, frankly, and just something to add to Blue. He's a guy that's been around a while. He's spent some time in Florida. He spent some time in Winnipeg, Buffalo. He's bounced around a bit. He's that veteran guy. We've talked about the Ducks. They're a pretty young team, so maybe not the worst thing in the world to add a veteran to that blue line. But he's not anybody that's he's not anybody to worry about, I guess, to put it nicely from a King standpoint. He's more of a defensive defenseman, but not one that is going to be a complete impact player, but probably just one for some veteran depth.
Yeah, it's good for Minnesota because they were looking to still clear some space to sign some more players, and they're up against it. Just even trading Fiala didn't even clear as much space as they needed to trade. And I mean, for a team like Anaheim that is barely at the cap floor, I mean, it's get a serviceable D-man that has one that could be traded at the trade deadline too.
Mm-hmm.
So Anaheim could get some more assets from this deal. I mean, it's kind of like a no-brainer, but it's not going to make kind of like the Aiden Hill move. It's not much of an impact on the whole division as a whole.
Yeah, Hill could be. I mean, that's me being a little bit more bullish, I think, on Hill than most. But if Vegas turns Thompson and Hill into a legitimate duo, that's not nothing, I think.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like they need average goaltending, really.
Yeah.
Kind of like how the Avalanche were, like with Kemper. I mean, Kemper was a little bit better, but I mean, with the Golden Knights, I mean, when you're kind of just begging for any kind of serviceable goaltending at the time, with where they're at in the cap, I mean, getting Aiden Hill for a backup, I mean, it's a good move for them. And then also Kessel too. It's kind of a fun little tandem.
Yeah, Kessel. We didn't talk about that. Kessel going to Vegas. You want to hit that, Joe?
No, absolutely. I mean, again, that's a solid addition for them. Frankly, he's a guy that obviously can still score. He isn't going to do probably anything else, right? He's not going to play. He's very north-south. He's going to streak up the right wing, but he can still shoot. He may not be the Kessel of old, but this is a guy that I think he just put up 50+ points last year. So he's not a throwaway necessarily. He still can be a productive player for Vegas and add some depth scoring.
It's a perfect replacement for Pacioretty on the power play, really, because I mean Pacioretty and him, they both have great wrist shots from the half wall. So now, I mean, if Kessel's not going to be playing much during 5-on-5, you still have his services during the power play. So that's definitely a good replacement there.
Yeah, and they're still obviously in a pretty significant cap situation. And there's one other thing I'll throw out that's related to the Pacific Division, and we talked about the Calgary Flames last week, and I think it was kind of bandied about a little bit. I thought I saw it. I don't know if it was Elliot Friedman or somebody had noted about the Flames kicked around Paul Stastny. It was either the Flames or Vegas kicked around Paul Stastny at the time before he went over to Carolina, but another name to look out for with the Calgary Flames, evidently, again, per Elliot Friedman, is Evan Rodriguez. And the Flames may only have a couple million in cap space, but for Evan Rodriguez, that's going to be a guy that's $1 million probably max. And we talked about how good they've handled this offseason with the hand they were dealt. If they're able to add a forward like that to add to the depth he can play on any line in multiple positions, it'd be a really a home run at the price that he's going to come in at for Calgary if he ends up going there, of course.
Yeah, I really like Evan Rodriguez's game too. I mean, he plays such a fun type of game of hockey. He's not really like a top 6 player, but he's a great skater and willing to get in the deep and dirty in the corners. So, and he's from Newport Beach too, from Newport Beach, California.
I did not know that.
I mean, I would have loved to see the Kings kind of figure out some way to bring in Rodriguez. I mean, God knows how many bottom 6 players the Kings have, but even just to have a little bit more veteran presence on a team he's played with the Pittsburgh Penguins for so long, and he's been on some good teams too, and he's been really good for those teams. So, I mean, yeah, if the Calgary Flames, I mean, the more you talk about him, the kind of game you watch, he would be perfect playing for Daryl Sutter because that's kind of like the Trevor Lewis,
exactly,
and they also still have him too. So, I mean, it would be an interesting, But I think there were other teams out there that had mentioned, but it's just a interesting name to watch, I guess, as we get towards the training camp and everything to see where he signs.
There's always a couple of these guys that are, for lack of a better term, I'll call them analytical darlings, right? These guys that may not write up the score sheet, but they do so many things under the hood well, but they're undervalued. And he's one of those guys that he does so much well but it's, there isn't that big goal scoring or point production like history to his game to where he just kind of goes unsigned. And here we are into September and he's without a contract, but somebody's going to get him, and whoever it is, they're going to get a good player at a good price.
Mm-hmm.
Let's move it on for good players at good prices here for AHL signings. Cavalcade of names to mention: Brent Kemp, Nikita Pavlichev, Joe Gattenby, Alex Irulo, Justin Nakbar, Christian Casastool, the Norwegian flying demon, Tyler Inamoto. A lot of names being mentioned there. Some depth bringing in for the AHL. Joe, our resident expert last season, those names are familiar. What do you think about the signings there? I mean, obviously the Norwegian demon there is number one on my list, but what about you?
I think a lot of those are going to be depth signings, and what I mean by that, you're probably going to see some of these guys, a lot of these guys, with the Swamp Rabbits in Greenville and the CHL. I don't know that there's going to be spots for all of these guys necessarily in Ontario. I guess we'll see.
If I get a Casatool Swamp Rabbits jersey, I might frame that for life.
Yeah, and listen, Christian Case, he came up and he filled in admirably last year, I thought, for the Reign. So I think it's great that he's getting a contract here and perhaps getting a shot. So the left side of the D in Ontario is also relatively thin. Toby Brissett, Allaire, obviously Nusainen, and I'm drawing a blank now. Yeah, Cameron Gaunce. But there's only the three at the moment. So there isn't that if something happens. I mean, we don't know what's going to happen with Moverari and Bjornfoot, of course, at the NHL level. So Casastool can fill a role. Tyler Inamoto can fill a role. And Inamoto was a guy, he came over from college last year where, all he did, it was kind of a running joke, I think, in college, was they said it is he eats pucks. Like, all he does is block shots. That is his game, is a left shot D, block shot. So if he can evolve and kind of turn into a little
very
bit of a
hearty diet.
Yeah. So I, in general, as a whole, a couple of depth, for the most part, they're organizational depth signings. But Casastool, again, he showed well in Ontario last year. And Inamoto, I'd be curious to see where he slots in, if he's in the start in Greenville or not.
I'm interested to see if they will go with the giraffe line. You got plenty of guys over 6'6".
Pavlichev?
Yeah. So Helenis Pavlichev, and then the big lefty,
Andre Lee.
Andre Lee, yeah. Yep. We got to get the draft line at least for one game.
That would be big. Those are three big bodies there. That's for sure.
I like it. Russell, I mean, I know you mainly were Kings last season, but does it kind of warm your heart that these guys have earned the spots with all the injuries last season, coming back in, getting AHL contracts for that, even if they're just depth pieces? They're familiar to the organization, and they'll serve roles this season because, obviously injuries are bound to happen over 82 games.
Yeah, it's cool to see the Kings show a little bit of loyalty to some of these players that really they just had to grab in almost an emergency at the time, because the Kings were just calling up all these defensemen from the Reign, and then the Reign were just kind of they had to take the brunt of it, and there was really nothing they could do, and it was really unfortunate for a team that was doing so well that they all of a sudden have to lose a lot of their really good players like Jordan Spence and all the good. And Kupari was down there too. Velarde got called up, and yeah, so it was tough to see. But now that some of those players that they had to sign to replace them are coming back, because they showed pretty well. And Tyler Inamono, Jesse Cohen actually kept hinting at me to watch out for the player, that this is a player that the Kings actually might sign come close to August, and sure enough, they end up doing it. But I've been watching him a little bit more since he mentioned him to me, and he's a big kid, and he's a big defenseman. He was actually on Alex Turcotte's University of Wisconsin team too, so he's a leader. I think he wore an A2 playing for the Badgers, and it'll be a good signing. But yeah, it's just good to see the Kings stay loyal to those players, and maybe they are productive for them too.
I want to add one more piece just to throw out there. He wasn't a recent signing. He's under contract. Rando, we saw he came in last year in the second half of the season after his college season ended, and that's Taylor Ward.
We're talking about Psych Ward, are we? Yeah, get the nickname going. Psych Ward. He likes to bash people in the face. I like it.
He played a lot of top 6 minutes, and he's not a quote unquote prospect per se, like all the guys we've talked about and rattled off over the last year or so or whatever it's been, right? He's an undrafted player, but it's noteworthy to me that an undrafted player immediately gets put on the top line next to TJ Tynan. He got top power play minutes. As Russ said, the Kings, had taken some of the Reign players, so they were perhaps a little bit short, but still there were enough guys there where he was still getting some significant minutes. And again, not a prospect, but really intriguing player. And I'm interested to see the type of season he has in Ontario. And not a surprise to me this year if he has a good start and has a strong showing in the A, that maybe he gets a cup of coffee.
I agree with that, and the fact that the Kings have been very good at getting college free agents to come in and play some productive minutes. And obviously the cupboard is full, right?
Yeah.
But you're looking at, hey, will he get a cup of coffee? Is it one of these Canadian road trips where you just need to bring another guy up? If somebody gets injured, do you trust him to play 1 or 2 games? Yeah, probably, right? And so I agree with that, and the fact that he might have a chance there. It's not something I'm looking forward to or looking out for, but I would agree with you on there.
What I'd say is if he immediately comes in from college and the coaching staff immediately puts a player like that right with TJ Tynan and Martin Ferk, to me, and I think he showed it. He had 5 points in his first 5 games. He can think. He is a hockey brain, does Taylor Ward, and I think that's probably.
Well, he was playing with the wizard himself, TJ Tynan. So,
well, but there's a reason for that. I think that was done intentionally. If you can trust that he can think at the wavelength of a TJ Tynan, that he's not going to be out of place, and he sure wasn't. So, just an interesting name, I thought, as we were on the Reign, that I'd throw out there.
Hey, it's all under the umbrella when we're talking about the Reign. All right. So, coming out with next topic here is Corey Pronman has released a couple articles lately. One about organizational depth for players underneath 23, and then just a ranking list. Kings got 8 players on that ranking list. They were 10th in organizational depth. And it's not just depth from prospect standpoint. It's what have they done in the NHL level? What have they done up to their career, up to the age of 23? And, we've harped on it. Fans have harped on it. This is going to be a little bit of a debate here, I think. And I guess I'll kick it off with a question. Is the high end lack of production for players underneath the age of 23 the only concern with this organization under that age range?
Yeah, I mean, I think at the moment it seems like it. It's tough because, for the Kings, they've been at the top of some of these prospect rankings for so long. The last 3 or 4 years, just because, and they just kept adding to it. And now they're almost at this transitional period where, okay, now it's starting to start seeing those prospects do it. And since some of those prospects, like a Turcotte especially, and Brandt Clark, haven't really been able to be featured in some events that you normally see these prospects featured. Like, let's say Brandt Clark played in these past World Juniors and just not even lit it up, just was an effective player for them. We'd probably be seeing him a little higher in these rankings. Well, let's say Alex Turcotte played a full year in the AHL last year. We'd probably see him a little higher or even get a couple more games. But now that it's just starting to seem like there's more of a quantity as opposed to a quality. But that's not to say a player like Quentin Byfield, who I think is going to have a great year this year, who's going to have an excellent sophomore season, lights it up, and then all of a sudden you see the Kings jump back up because you see an elite prospect like Byfield light it up. So now all of a sudden, okay, now they're showing a little bit more. Now we have to actually give them their due diligence and show them that they're higher in these rankings than we had them before.
Renee, thank you for your question. We will get to that during the Q&A. Sorry, Russ. Renee, I threw up Jael. Thank you for being in the chat. Renee, thank you for being in the chat. We'll get to your question after this. So, obviously young talent Byfield, that could change the script, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, he's kind of the key, and I think Russ made a pretty good point about guys having the opportunity to kind of showcase. Like Byfield had a lot of the injuries, and I thought when he finally did get healthy and get his feet under him, he showed pretty well in Ontario before getting called up and then getting COVID. So then he got another mini setback. Clark, I think the only thing that's disappointing about Clark is and kind of, I think we talked about the other day when we talked about the World Juniors, he just didn't get a chance to play on the roster again, even if he wasn't an impactful player. He wasn't there, so we didn't get a chance to see him. So I think there's a lot of people waiting to see
I didn't look this up. When's the last time a top 10 pick didn't make the roster?
I don't know, honestly. I don't know.
That would be my only question.
Well, and I think
so if anybody can @ Hockey Royalty on Twitter and they know this answer, add us, and I want to know that. So
and what's funny, I got a little chuckle, I guess, when I was scrolling through the rankings. So there's 170 players on age under 23. And so just so people understand, it is age under 23, meaning there's some NHL players like Jack Hughes is tops the list. But I did get a little kick out of, so Brandt Clarke was ranked 87th. And slightly ahead of him, 74th, was Brock Faber, which I thought was a little interesting, just given the fact, obviously, the Kings just traded Faber because of the depth on the right side of the D. I thought that was a little bit interesting. So, I don't know. Yes, it's so much.
Look, I would like to dive into that real quick.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because at what point does actual play on the ice factor in more than possibility or fabrication or looking forward into the future, right? I mean, everybody views Brandt Clarke as Drew Doughty reincarnate, right? Offensively, at least. But Brock Faber has produced in an Olympic level, in a men's world junior or men's championship level, a world junior level. He's been named captain. He's named assistant captain. He played well at NCAA. Like Brock Faber has only played in the O. Never played anywhere else outside of Europe for a little bit, a cup of coffee. Like at what point? Brandt Clarke. Well, at what point does actual hockey weigh more than future considerations?
Well, that's probably why you're seeing it.
Yeah, and that's why I mentioned that it's all because of exposure. I mean, Brock Faber, like you just look at all the things you rattled off. He's been in the Olympics. He's been like multiple World Juniors where he's wearing a letter. I mean, we can also compare Brock Faber, but he's going to be a junior now in collegiate hockey. I mean, Brandt Clarke, I think he's just turned 19 or he's 19 years old. I think Faber's 20 or a year or two older, but it's just because of exposure. So a lot of these scouts, and it's nothing to dog on him, but it's like, I mean, the more you're going to see a player and and that's not to say that he hasn't been a bad player, but the more you're going to see him, the more you're going to be excited for a player like that. I mean, Brock Faber, I don't think he's going to be a better player than Brandt Clarke. And I think it would be, I think it's almost a miss to say that he's going to be a better player than Brandt Clarke, but maybe they're also different players. So it's hard to compare, but it's all based on exposure.
Let me ask you this. In the draft right now, who are you taking, Clarke or Faber?
Oh, I'm taking Brandt Clarke all day.
Right. So I think, so I think this list is probably more so kind of, okay, what have these guys actually done?
Yeah. What have you done for me lately? Exactly.
But when and that's why I even think Byfield he came in at 22nd on this list. That still feels a little low for me. Like
it feels right on par.
You think so?
No, I think that's pretty low. Also, I mean, it's hard to compare because, like you said, there's players like Jack Hughes in there. I mean, 23. I mean, Quinn Byfield's 20 years old. It's funny because we always compare like the Kings and the Anaheim Ducks trajectories. It's like Byfield and Zegras and Kaliev and whoever, and it's like Byfield is a year and a half younger than Zegras. Trevor Zegras has been playing, and it's like Quinn Byfield has barely played. He hasn't even played half a season in the NHL yet.
So, but my thing, a lot of these rankings are the talent that you're playing, right? Jack Hughes has played against NHL talent.
So yeah, but Jack Hughes is he's number
Quentin
one.
Byfield is Quentin Byfield has barely played against NHL talent, and he's been injured. I get it. So I understand from a Kings fan standpoint, like we're making accurate, like pause the brakes, give some patience, do all that kind of stuff. But this list is brought on to what has been done already. There's no patience involved with that. That's just pure what their career has been to this point, and based on their age. And Byfield hasn't done anything. Like the only 6 points that he made in the World Juniors were against Switzerland. And like you might as well throw out the Canadian or United States women's team against that team because that's like they're nobodies. So where is this? Like I understand. I think that rating is accurate in my opinion as well.
I think the reason my case for being him, he should be a little bit higher. And I'm not saying he should be in the top 10 or anything, but perhaps at least into the top 20 is what. And I will throw another question at you. Would you take each of you? So Randon, I'll start with you. Quentin Byfield or this past year's or this last month's first overall pick, Slavkovsky to Montreal?
I would take
He's
Byfield
thinking.
over because of center
Russ?
position.
I'd take
But-
Byfield.
Okay,
But
same question for
Safkowski
Shane,
is thrown his body around. I would like
Shane
I'm
Wright. Same right. Shane Wright. Same question.
Well, I mean, a couple of teams passed on, but I still take Byfield. I mean, the thing is like, okay.
What I'm getting at
Also-
is they're already ranked 15, 16, multiple spots ahead of Byfield, and that to me is a little. I don't know. I don't know if I get that.
But
And you know
Byfield
what-
hasn't dominated in any position outside of Sudbury. Like he
What have
hasn't.
tho- but I think part of the reason is this.
So that's what I'm saying. It's what have you done for me lately? Like Safkowski has
So
dominated.
what they haven't
Wright
done,
has-
you know, and what they haven't done is they haven't yet failed at the pro level. And fail is the wrong word, but they haven't like had to hit those bumps in the road
Trials.
where
Yeah.
Byfield has hit them. He's being penalized for them, which I guess I can understand that. But these guys are being placed ahead of him where they haven't even had to go through those bumps yet. So if and when that they have those growing pains, are they going to plummet? Like I look at the.
But I don't think Promin is thinking like Socrates here. I think it's literally just like it's what I said. It's like
Yeah.
okay, yeah, there's a little bit of future aspect to it. Like what is the ceiling for this character?
Mm-hmm.
But where has he played already? Like Byfield had a chance to dominate the World Juniors, 3C, only scored points against the Swiss. Like you look at Sokowski had played in the Olympics, MVP, played in the men's World Championships, dominated. Like you're looking at okay, those guys. He has really chosen players who have excelled. When has Byfield ever excelled after Sudbury? And I'm not knocking this kid. I'm just asking you a real question.
He's got 40. I mean, in the AHL, he's played over 40 games at the pro level, and he's got a modest 26 points. Like that's not anything to just
As a
kind of
teenager.
That's not MVP of the Olympics.
But he's a teenager. I mean, the thing is, the Quentin Byfield, when he was drafted as a project. He wasn't drafted as a player who's going to make an impact. Look, they would have drafted Tim Stützle.
But that's not the rankings. We're talking about the rankings.
No, I
here.
understand that. I understand what the rankings are, and that's why I've said this. These rankings feel like more of like a "What have you done for me lately?" Because I mean, you have players like Slavkovsky and Shane Wright, and neither one of them played in the World Juniors. So I mean, it's just, but their names were also talked about on end because of the draft and everything like that. So I mean, we hear those names a lot more than we have Quentin Byfield because I mean, Quentin Byfield, he joined a team that was in the midst of a playoff push. And that was making a lot more excitement as opposed to a number 2 overall player just playing for them. They were making a lot more statements in the standings and playoffs, and there's a lot more going on besides that. So Quentin Byfield, he's had a lot of ups and downs, but now that he's going to be coming into a new season, hopefully healthy, hopefully fresh, ready to go, and he's going to be a 20-year-old, makes more of an impact. His names go up in that ranking.
All right, we talked about this coming in a little bit. I'm going to throw the dialogue into a different direction. Obviously, this is you guys have been talking about, what about this? What about that? Let's play a little crystal ball action. What we think of these players and where will the Kings rank next season? We were 10th. Where will the Kings rank next season in the top 23 and how do we get there? And I'll start. If Quentin Byfield, who was a second overall pick, scores 45 plus points this season, Kings will easily be in the top 5 because that shows promise with a high draft pick, which is what exactly you need, draft caliber and production. I think that is exactly where it needs to be. That's I said on future podcasts or previous podcasts that 40 plus points is my goal for him. If he gets 45 or 50, like you're looking at a guy like that would skyrocket the rankings for the Kings. Who are some other gems that maybe would help move this in the right direction?
I actually think a couple of names that could really move this, maybe even more so than Byfield, are Alex Turcotte and Martin Chromiak. Like I think if those two guys really light up.
How
like,
so?
So if Turcotte, because Turcotte is kind of, so I guess case in point, on that list of the top 170 players under 23, Turcotte is 108. Okay, this is a former 5th overall pick. We've beaten Alex Turcotte to death. If he can stay healthy, if he can get healthy and stay healthy and get back to being, he wasn't that far off a point a game player when he was playing in the AHL. If he can get back to that, you're going to see him jump I think, a lot in these rankings. And a player that in Chromiak, who wasn't even on this list, is projected to potentially play a top 6 role, maybe even alongside TJ Tynan. At least that's what we're thinking. We'll see what the team decides to do. And coming off a huge year he just had in the O, if he's somebody that lights the lamp, he's somebody that's not even on this list, he could jump into it. So I think we could see, if those two guys are impactful players, they could really make a leap too.
Russell, what do you think about his who picks there?
Yeah, it's Byfield. Obviously, he needs to have a better year, and he would help out. Turcotte, just stay healthy, and I'm hoping that he comes into the rookie face-off and is energetic and the same player that he was last year. Because in the last rookie face-off in Arizona last year, he was excellent. He was playing really well alongside. Like, if I had my all-tournament team for the Kings, it was him and Dursey that were the best players for the team at that time. So I think if you just have a full season, he would help. Also, Brant Clark, he's going to most likely go into these next World Juniors, because we have another World Juniors coming up in December. He's more than likely going to be playing in the top 4 for another stacked Canada team that's going to have Connor Bedard on it again. I mean, they're going to be a really good team that's going to be looking to win the gold. So if he has a good year, you still have Fagemo. So, I mean, there's some other players, but it's really going to be up to those top 4 players in Byfield, who also Kaliev, who's also only 21 years old now, and Turcotte and Clark. So if those 4 players have productive years, you think about all 4 of those players, maybe besides Kaliev, all had kind of speed bump kind of seasons last year.
Mm-hmm.
Brant Clark had a great, excellent OHL season, but then all of a sudden everyone's questioning why he's not making the Team Canada roster. And then Alex Turcotte, of course, his injuries, and Byfield, his injuries and late shortcomings. So, I mean, if those 4 players have better seasons, I mean, we're talking about probably the best 4 under 23 players in the Kings organization right now. So if those 4 players have better years, then absolutely that ranking is going to go up higher.
Yeah, I don't think Brant Clark makes the World Juniors because he's making the effing Kings, baby. That's what we're talking about. No, I think he has a good chance to make the Kings, because, to be honest, like, the Kings need some offense from the blue line. I really like it. I think he has a good chance to play a cup of coffee at least 9 games just to see what he has, or be at least in LA for the 9 games, right? So I think that's good.
I've gone the other way on that, by the way.
Okay.
You asked me 6 months ago, and I would be like, it's maybe he's not on the team, but it's at least he maybe his spot to lose. I don't see how, if a player is not ready for a World Junior tournament, he's going to be ready for the National Hockey League just a couple of months later. I get it; the circumstances maybe aren't identical, but maybe it's offense from the blue line. That on the right side, that's the Kings have plenty of options there. Doughty, a healthy Walker, Dursey, if they ever sign him, Jordan Spence. Like, I don't think it's anything on the right side of the D that they're necessarily hurting for. So I was somebody that I'm totally flipped my opinion on this based on everything that's gone on. And if Team Canada doesn't think he's ready for World Juniors, I don't see how the Kings can think he'll be ready for the NHL.
Yeah, well, you might have maple syrup down, but you don't have hockey down, Canada. Just kidding. No, the other one is Kaliev, right? Because Kaliev has, I think, for me, is the high goal potential, right? So obviously, lack of minutes, scored, I believe, 14 goals with less than 10 minutes, 12 minutes a night. If he gets 20 plus and he starts lighting the lamp on the power play, that skyrockets, because obviously, in my opinion, if I was making this list, NHL playtime or scoring at the NHL level would dictate a higher level of acumen. And if he can do that, I think that at least that rockets more than Quentin Byfield. That rockets, because 30 plus goals or 25 plus goals or 20, that's really a huge difference. And he should get a crap ton more power play time this season. Does anybody disagree with that?
No, and it's funny because the more I watched Arthur Kaliev highlights, the more I wonder how he fell to the second round. That kid is going to be an absolute stud in the NHL. I mean,
because he skates in quicksand and when he was under 17.
Yeah, I mean, but the skating is what it is. I mean, I don't think it's the biggest knock on him. He moves well, and he's starting to use his body more. I think that's going to be something, because obviously he can score, but a big question mark with Arthur Kaliev is he going to be able to utilize his body more in the corners and kind of, because I mean, he's also a great playmaker too. He made a lot of great passes that were shown throughout the year not just goal scoring. So I think if he's able to keep up in terms of pace and in terms of physicality in the corners, man, I'm expecting a huge year out of Kaliev.
I agree. I'm just knocking him a little bit. But let's move on here. I think we went to the young talent. Let's go to DraftKings, our fearless sponsor here. The action never ends at DraftKings Sportsbook, especially this summer, with tons of ways to bet on all your favorite sports. You can fuel your fandom and feel the heat of the season like never before. Plus, DraftKings right now, DraftKings Sportsbook is giving customers a free bet up to $1,000. That's right. Make your first bet up to $1,000. If it doesn't win, you'll get another shot to cash in. You can throw down on all major action for baseball, golf, MMA, more. Plus, same-game parlays, spreads, money lines, over-unders, and props to betting options. Hey, do you still think the Angels suck? Yes, they do. Do the Dodgers can win the World Series? Yes, they can. Bet on all those. Best of all, DraftKings is safe, secure, reliable. You can deposit and withdraw all your cash whenever you want. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Use promo code THPN. Make your first deposit and get a risk-free bet up to $1,000. That's promo code THPN at DraftKingsSportsbook.com. Minimum age and eligibility restrictions may apply. See show notes for details. You know, it's not hockey, but, and I don't mean to bash Angels fans, but have you seen a team squander two supreme talents more than any other team ever? Like Mike Trout and Shohei Ohtani? Like, that is ridiculous.
So I actually live not too far from Anaheim, and I go to quite a few Angel games, and I've gone to quite a few Angel games just because if you're from LA, going to a Dodgers game is like mission impossible pretty much with all the traffic and parking and all blah, blah, blah. But Angel game is actually relatively easy. That's why you'll see a lot of Dodger fans there because it's just right down the 5 freeway. Parking is great, and it is what it is. But, man, it's been so, like, sad to watch the Angels' demise this year just because of how well they were going. What's the guy's name on ESPN, the ESPN reporter? I remember he tweeted something about when they were in the midst of all their high rise at the beginning of the year. He tweeted something about how they were like one of the most fun teams to watch this season. And then right after he said that, they went on that 14-game losing streak. And then everyone thought it was his fault. I forget his name, but I mean, it's just been so sad. I'm seeing fans at the games now wearing paper bags over their heads. And, I mean, as a Dodger fan, I kind of just almost sit back and chuckle. But you just hope that team can figure it out with the talent they have.
What a mess. I mean, I'm a Yankee fan, so it's a little different, and I don't pay that much attention. But to just know that there's two absolute stars, of like historic proportions, not just like stars. These are like some like great players of all times. You could argue, certainly with Trout. I know Ohtani hasn't done it for a long time, but what he's done is insane. And they have nothing. There's just no. And you thought I thought, man, this team, there's some talent coming out. Like Brandon Marsh was there earlier this season. Like there's maybe a little something brewing. Patrick Sandoval at Detmers, like there's some pitching, and it just hasn't come together. I don't know.
I mean, at least Artie's selling the team. It sounds like that's huge news for the team. Huge.
So now we're getting into some fan Q&A. We love your fans. Thank you for commenting on all our articles, reading our articles, being here online, listening to our podcast. We appreciate you guys, and we want to get you in the show. So we're coming up with some fan Q&A here, man. We're dropping your questions. We're tagging you in them. This is what's going on here. We're giving fresh stuff. Hey, I haven't even looked at these. So this is going to be fresh off the cuff stuff. There's some good questions in here. Let's get ready to go. Longtime listener. I'm surprised he's not in the chat right now. I'm scolding him a little bit. Carter Scores, do you think Kopitar signs a 1-year deal to play third line center after his current deal is up, a la Bergeron for Boston? What do you guys think?
So we're thinking 2 years from now? Yeah. Go ahead, Joe.
I was going to say, I mean, I don't know what Kopitar's, thoughts on his future are when his contract is up. I envision him being a guy that would end his career in LA. So if he wants to do the 1-year deal thing, then yeah, I think he would. And I'm sure the Kings would as well. I don't know though. It's hard to say. Maybe at the end of this, if he says, I'm 37 and it's been a good run. I've had a good run, and I'm all set. Yeah, it's hard to say because I don't know what his thoughts are, but I certainly hope so because I still think he can be there. He's clearly, in 2 years, I still think he's a player that, will have some sort of value to the team, even if it isn't 1C.
Russ,
Yeah,
do you think that
absolutely.
depends on how competitive the team is?
No, I think the Kings will. I mean, do you guys see Kopitar playing with any other team? Or I mean, I don't see it at all. And I see him finishing his career with LA. He'll be 37 when this contract is over. Hasn't really shown any signs of really slowing down. I mean, he's still a highly productive top line player. I mean, at 35 years old, I mean, you don't see him just not being able to play in the NHL at all. So even if he could be, I mean, 80% Kopitar is still above average in the NHL right now. So, I mean, if you can keep him around as long as you can, do I see it being a 1-year deal? I mean, even if it's 2 or 3, I mean, brings him till he's. I mean, Kopitar, he plays the type of game. I mean, look at Joe Thornton. I mean, he's still playing, and he's 57 years old. I mean, Jaromir Jagr's still playing. I mean, it is what it is. But
Don't give me that. They haven't won any championships. Come on. Russ.
But these bigger type of players seem to kind of stay a little bit more durable and last a little longer in the NHL. And with Kopitar, he's looking really good. He's taking really good care of his body, and he wants to win another cup. So I think he'll stay around for let's see. Maybe if the Kings win a cup in the next couple of years, and then he hangs them up, I think that's probably the last ride he's looking for.
No offense, Kopitar, but if we get Austin Matthews and Byfield's number 2 and Deneau's number 3, I would cream in my jeans for that. Ben Minkin comes here. Bergeron is still Boston's number 1C. Correct. He is. But they also don't have the prospect of Byfield. So, we're hoping as a Kings fan that Byfield takes that realm or is shown that he can. Or there's the 1A, 1B scenario where they just roll the first 2 lines equally. Obviously, like I said, it's down the line. But I would hope that Kopitar is a lifelong King and his jersey's in the rafters. That's what I hope.
Yep, likewise.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's get to the next question here. Velarde is back. What is everyone's dark horse candidate to make the roster this year? Also, we'll start with that one. What is your dark horse candidate to make the roster?
This is a tough one because the roster, there's so many. It seems like there's so few roster spots available. I guess the name that I'll throw out there, and I don't know if I guess it's a dark horse. I'll say Jared Anderson-Dolan because I think he's a really valuable piece. I think he's a guy that can play up and down the lineup. I think we talked about Evan Rodriguez earlier. I think that's the type of player Jared Anderson-Dolan, I think at his peak could kind of evolve into. Just this jack of all trades, can play the middle, can play the wing. If you need him in a top 6 for a couple of games with injury, he can do it. But he's probably settled into that, bottom 6 type of role. But just a solid kind of all-around player. He would need to clear waivers to go down. And I think if the Kings were looking to potentially expose a player, I think they're more likely to expose Elias Anderson. I'm still not ruling out the possibility of a late, and I know this might sound a little crazy, a late Velarde trade. But my dark horse would be Anderson-Dolan because I think if there's perhaps a little risk of losing him to waivers, maybe then more than the average. I know we overplay that sometimes, admittedly, but that's my dark horse.
What do you think, Morgan?
I'm going to go a little deeper, and I'm going to say Martin Chromiak.
Whoa, I think super deep. That's spicy Russ. That's spicy.
Yeah, if he has a really good rookie face-off and a really impressive training camp, I think there's a chance we see him on the team. He's 18 years old. He's still on his entry-level deal. I mean, I don't know if they can give him I'm not sure if the entry-level slide still applies to him. I don't think it does, but I think the Kings management, every time you hear them talk about Martin Chromiak, they are just gushing with his speed, his offensive abilities, and his ability to play rough and play dirty. I mean, he can use his body really well. And now that he's grown, it was just really unfortunate we weren't able to see him play in the World Juniors because, I mean, I'm sure also Slovakia was also sad to see him leave because he was going to be probably one of their best players, if not their best player. So I'm really excited with Martin Chromiak, especially for him being only a 5th-round pick. Every time I watch this kid play, I am just gushing with with excitement because he's so fun and so exciting.
I guess to go along with this question, why would that? Why? So if somebody makes the team, somebody's out. Okay, let's assume.
So I have that answer for you.
Okay.
So if Arvidsson misses because of his injury, my pick is the plug-in right there, and it's Samuel Fagemo.
Okay.
A shot first forward.
Yep.
Who can play high level minutes. He played in the top line with Kopitar during the preseason last year, so they trust him a little bit. And we all think he can play. He can get that 35 to 40 goal in the AHL level if he plays with Tynan. So now, why not play with Danault? He's not as gifted as a playmaker, Danault, as Tynan is, respective to their levels of hockey.
Sure.
But that line right now, you have Scrapper and Scrapper. If you put Iafallo and you bring him up, you have 3 scrappers in that line. You need some diversity, and I think Fagemo brings that. I think you could get legit production out of Samuel Fagemo for however long Victor Arvidsson's out. Arvidsson's the type of guy who will be around the net. Check for Fagemo. Will shoot whenever he needs to. Check. Can dish when he wants to. Check. Will have a little bit of aggressiveness. Check. Wants to put the puck in the effing net. Double check. So, I really think that is a play there. And Fagemo is my dark horse because the fact that, Velarde plays a different game. Kupari plays a different game. Like, if you're looking for a 1-for-1 for that line, I think Samuel Fagemo really brings that talent level. And if you're only talking for, 10 games, 15 games, which is what is proposed as the max so far, outside of any re-aggravation, I'd be happy with Fagemo playing on the second line because Moore and Danault is going to be respectful defensively. Fagemo has worked on that. We talked about it in multiple podcasts, how he's brought his offensive game up. I would not be surprised if he makes the lineup right out of camp because of the fact that he offers that in spades. It's as a direct 1-for-1 comparison, respective to their skill sets. What do you guys think?
I'd argue that both of the options that you guys threw out there offer just that. Like both of those guys could fill that role in the event that Arvidsson is missing some time. Do we think that if Arvidsson isn't missing time, that there's probably not really a spot? I think it's tough for the dark horse because the Kings roster, there's so many guys and there's so few spots right now that I don't know.
That's why it's speculation
injury.
There, Joe.
Yeah.
Hey, crystal balls are for premonition. So is that. Just wax that a little bit. Get some stuff going on there, man.
I'm nothing.
Yeah, Fagemo would be great. I thought out of all the rookies that came in last year and played their debuts or whatever, I thought Fagemo was really the most comfortable in terms of what he came in the first couple of shifts that he had. And he's directly a comparison to Victor Arvidsson. I don't think that's a bad idea at all.
All right, let's go here. At ME Kings fan comes in with, at some point during the 22-23 regular season, will Kopitar no longer be the 1C for the first time in over a decade? Russ, what do you think?
Sorry.
Yeah, I'm gonna kind of go on a little rant here, but
this
whole talk
rant it up. Let's throw you in the big side here. There we go.
we talk about I think this kind of pertains more to just the Kings as opposed to any other team because the way they're built. It's not necessarily each line has. I feel like each line has its own little responsibilities, but I don't see the Kings having like a first line, second line, or third line. As much as you want to look at it on paper and think, yeah, the third line with Quinn Byfield is not going to be as productive as a line with Kevin Fiala and Adrian Kempe, but to have this notion that you have to have a 1C center playing with your best players. I think it's all about more just combination and what meshes well together more. I don't see a player like Quentin Byfield being able to mesh well. Because if let's say Anze Kopitar does come off the 1C, who's going to play there? Quentin Byfield? Phil Danault? Yeah, Phil Danault you can say was a better, more productive player than Kopitar at times last year, but I still wouldn't take him off that line with Trevor Moore and Victor Arvidsson just because he's being a better center, I guess, than Anze Kopitar. So with the Kings, it's Yeah, you want Arthur Kaliev, like, for example, is everyone always talks about, like, yeah, let's get Arthur Kaliev some top 6 minutes. Like, why? Let's get him some minutes with Quentin Byfield, who's going to be playing together for the next 15 or so years. Let's have them play together, and let's say they all of a sudden are really productive, and now you have a quote unquote really good third line. I mean, I just like the whole thing for like first line, second line, and third line. I mean, for the Kings, I guess more it's just like you have a good fourth line for the Kings, but all top three lines, they bring their own set to the table. And I think that the Kings, if they're going to be a really good team, they need to have a good top nine. And all three lines need to be productive in their own set. Obviously, the first line is probably going to be a little bit more productive than a line with Kaliev and IFL on it. But hey, I could see definitely if Quentin Byfield's going to turn into a 45, 50-point goal scorer, and Arthur Kaliev has a 30-goal season, who's not to say that's not the Kings' first line? So I don't know. It's just this whole like 1C, 2C, 3C, especially for the Kings. It's like they're going to be a really good top 9, top 6 team. And I think the second line is going to be really good. It's all about mesh and combination, what chemistry kind of developed with all those players.
So, hey, we were gone for like 15 minutes. Are you done with your rant? I'm
done. That's all I had.
Kidding. It was a good rant. I agree. I mean, Kopitar, obviously he's not going to be able to do in his age play, 5-on-5, power play, penalty kill, first time, all the time. And he shouldn't have to, right? We brought Danault in for a reason. We should have more guys that can play penalty kill. We talked about in the last podcast that you think that penalty kill is a more egregious special teams than power play because of the fact that we have guys that can play defense and our team still sucked on that. So I agree with you there. I think that Byfield would have to show an immense jump because Joe said in a couple podcasts ago that Danault will never be a 1C because the fact that he doesn't have that offensive production in his game, and Byfield really has to take that jump. So I think Kopitar is there for the time being. Now, Joe, do you want to respond to that? Because I kind of called you out.
No, that's fine. No, I think you're right. I think that. I was actually wondering if that's where Russ was going to go with his rant because I had a mini rant to say that there was this idea that Danault, that Kopitar wasn't 1C and Danault was top C. And I kind of agree with Russ about the whole, like, does it really matter? And where I'll push back only a little bit is like, at the end of the day, it's late in the game and you need somebody to put the puck in the net. You're looking to your top line anchored by your top line centerman. And that's Andrei Kopitar. And it still will be next year. And it could very well likely be next year. I mean, that is what it is. Like it's probably good. It's Andrei Kopitar is going to be on the ice over Phil Danault in the final seconds of a game if they need a goal. That's just the way it goes. That's what it's going to be. So, like that's.
Well, let me ask this then. Let me ask this because we're all fans and we all talk about this team. And I've mentioned a couple times. Are you concerned with the transition point with the 1C? We talked about Kopitar is obviously getting older in age. Maybe he doesn't have the wingers. Maybe Fiala makes him an 80-point player next year. We don't know, right? We're all talking about crystal balls. But are you concerned with the transition, right? Because Byfield hasn't shown that he can be even a 2C yet. Velarde has failed at that. We brought in Danault, but Danault isn't a 1C. There's a lot of moving parts here. Are you concerned that there isn't a future or a clear future for the 1C for the Kings organization?
Not yet. I mean, we've talked about how big this is a year for Byfield, but the reason I'm not concerned is because we have Kopitar still on the roster for the next 2 years, and I think he's more than capable of being the number one center in Los Angeles for 2 years, and it helps to have a very, very capable two center. Like I don't think Danault has the consistent production to be a one center in the NHL, but I think he can be a really good 2C, like better than most second line centers. So the fact that they do have him and he is so good at both ends of the ice that it does allow them to, if they do decide we can ease back on Kopitar's minutes a bit, that they can allow Danault to play a little bit more. But at the end of the day, no, I'm not concerned because I still think, I don't know. I mean, I don't think Kopitar was as bad as maybe some people are making it out to be last year. Maybe that's just me having my Kopitar blinders on.
What do you think, Russ? Do you think people have Kopitar blinders on?
A little bit. Yeah, you're watching, especially, I mean, when, let's say you watch a line like the Deneau, Arvidsson, Moore line last year. That was
Mhm.
pretty much they all look like Energizer bunnies running up and down the ice. And you see Kopitar come out there, who's pretty much the opposite of that, where he kind of just more slows the game down, and
It's
does
just
his
different.
thing. So yeah, it's just a different type of gameplay that you're watching. So I don't know. Kopitar was still a really productive player. He once again led the Kings in points. I mean, yeah,
Yeah.
I think that as far as the transition period, I think it's almost perfect. Like you think about when Kopitar's contract's up, he'll be 37. Quentin Byfield would be 22. So I mean, he'd still be a young player. So hopefully you'll have some production still getting out of Kopitar, but most likely Quentin Byfield's going to start to turn into an NHL player that's not even still coming to his prime. It's just funny to think about like how young Quentin Byfield is still. And we have to take a step back sometimes and look at like, okay, wait till let's wait till we see Quentin Byfield when he's like 25. He's 6'5", like 230 or something, skating down the ice with the speed he has. So, I mean, I think we just have to remind ourselves the age at which Quentin Byfield is at, but also hope. There also is that hope, though, that Anze Kopitar can sustain a little bit of that production that he's had last few years in the end of his contract.
Yeah, and I think he will. Like that's why. So to answer the question, Brandon, no, I'm not concerned because I think there's a good year to 2 years left in this transition, and I think the Kings are in a decent spot there because of Kopitar and to know, for that matter as well, to kind of ease some of the burden on Byfield, and hopefully, we start to see some more impact play out of him.
Yeah, I agree there, and I think there's a little pause for concern because we haven't seen it yet.
Mm-hmm.
But the transition hasn't happened yet. Like it's not ready to happen.
No, completely agree with that. No,
it's not like the goalie situation this year where Quick's contract is up, right? It's like it's not that drastic. Let's go here to at Swing Crusader. In the unlikely event that we lose both Mikey and Jersey, what would you expect the Kings to do about the defense for the start of the season? I started the last one. Why don't you start this one, buddy?
The Kings missed the playoffs. That's
dark. Take the dark.
Come on.
Take the dark route.
Who's replacing? So you can't. It's September, so I have enough questions about the left side of the D with Mikey and everybody. If you lose Mikey Anderson, you now are going into the season with Adler, Moverari, and Bjornfot as your left side. That's not a playoff. That's not making the playoffs. Not in a contested division. They can stomach Jersey, I think. And again, we are playing a worst case scenario here that in the unlikely event we're playing a hypothetical. Okay, we're all expecting these guys to come back, but in the scenario, on the right side, Jersey, they still have Walker. They still have Jordan Spence who could come back up. So there's a little bit more depth there on the right side to where if something went wrong with Jersey, they still have, and of course, Brant Clark, has the opportunity to make the team out of camp. I would imagine, of course, I think that what the question here is alluding to, what do they do about the defense, that they would try to go out and acquire a defenseman. But boy, I don't know who's giving up a defenseman weeks before the season just because the Kings couldn't, I don't know, because they couldn't sign him. To play in this hypothetical scenario, I don't know what they would do to replace it from the outside. And assuming they aren't able to, at least quickly, that is a big blow. Like I've said that I don't know if Mikey Anderson is a LD1 like NHL wise, but he is on the Kings, and that's a big blow to the Kings left side if he isn't back for whatever reason. So unless they're replacing him in some sort of a trade, that's not a playoff left side.
Russ, you want to continue this?
Yeah, I mean, if Anderson doesn't come back, your left side is the best defenseman probably on the left side is Alex Edler. That's not really the best option you want to have, but I mean, you still have Jacob Moverari around, Tobias Bjornfot. We'll see what happens this year. And on the right side, Jordan Spence, I think, is going to be a stud in the NHL. Mm-hmm. I mean, I was really impressed with his first season in the NHL, coming from the Q, and then all of a sudden dominating the AHL, and then actually playing really impressive, and even getting a couple playoff games in NHL too. I'm really excited with Jordan Spence, but I'll end it with, I think there's a less than 0% chance that both of those players aren't coming back. Yeah. If you have to choose, and I'll leave it like this, I think if you have to choose between losing Mikey Anderson and Sean Dursey and keeping player like Iafallo or Arvidsson even, I mean, I think you'd probably look, or even Sean Walker, I think you're probably looking to trade away one of those players just to make some more space to bring in young players like Dursey and Anderson, who are going to be good players in the NHL and have long-term careers with the Kings.
To be clear, Mikey, even if I say I'm unsure if he's LD1, like I said, he fits well with Dowd. He's LD1 in LA, and at worst case, I do think he's a top 4 defenseman in the NHL. He is a really good defenseman, so that's a big loss to the Kings if they were, for whatever reason, unable to get this done.
Okay, quick roundtable. When do you start panicking if none of these guys are signed? Me, it's the start of training camp. What do you think, Russ?
Same. Start training
What do you
camp.
think, Joe?
You want them around.
Start of the season.
Start of the season?
I wouldn't say it's panicking.
I'm not panicking
at
training camp. As we approach opening, maybe like that last, if that last preseason game, if they're still not signed, then you start to be a little like, okay, I'm a little antsy here. But because at the end of the day, like there's very little that they have as restricted free agents. So it is, they would just sit out, and I don't know how that benefits them.
Yeah, exactly. So if they don't end up signing, I think their only alternative is sitting out a year, and I think it would be a miss for not only the player if they have to choose to sit out a year, but also the Kings if they're not offering players like that at least decent contracts that would make them willing to come back.
So let's continue on that path. Let's continue on that path. If they don't offer contract and they play hardball with both these guys, and they sign for less than what they think they deserve, what does that next contract look like for them? Like, do they both?
That kind of happened with Doughty, I think, but he ended up signing long term. But I believe he missed a couple preseason games. I don't remember if he missed actual NHL games, but he did wait a little while to sign as an RFA at that time. So that was something to watch. I don't know. I don't expect Anderson and Dursey to hold out, but like I mentioned before, Dursey's represented by Alan Walsh, and he's really a player first agent that's always going to fight for his players as much as he can. So it'll be something to watch. I mean, as we get closer to training camp, we're getting down here. So,
all right, second to last, submission, because our boy at Richard Sabaria had like 17 questions, and we narrowed it down a little bit. But right here, we're going with Carter Scores. If Cal doesn't live up to his contract, what do the Kings do? Trade for a goalie, free agent, draft. I'm going to start with this one. Draft, there's no draft. You can't, because even a first-round goalie is an immediate acquisition, right? Like you look at top guys, Spencer Knight, Askarov, Wallstedt. Are they in the NHL? Well, Spencer Knight barely made it, but he hasn't dominated. And what you're looking at for with the Kings coming up and being a playoff team is they need to be able to dominate, and they haven't been there yet. So even if you draft a guy this year, which according to our glorious guests in Corey Proman, Wheeler, and Peters, no goalies in the first round, maybe even the second round next season. It's a deep draft, but not goalie-wise. So I don't think that's an option. Now that we've eliminated that, do you think that it would be trade for a goalie? Is there a goalie that might not be in a good situation? Or do you think that there is an older goalie that might be coming up for free agency that you would like to hit up? What do you think, Joe?
So I'm not sure if Carter Scores here is referring to like after this season, or if he's saying after the duration of the contract of 3 years.
I would assume it's a panic, right? Because last year he didn't play well. If he didn't play well again this season, it's a panic, right? What are we going to do?
Yeah. So am I crazy to think that it partially depend on Jonathan Quick? And the reason I asked that question, I don't know that he said that this is his last year. It's his last year under contract, right? But I know we've talked about, and we've seen rumors about, is Quick going to be on his way out? Are they going to look to try to trade him because of his cap and all that stuff? Well, now he's got 1 year left, so it's not as big of a deal. Do we really think Quick? We talked about this earlier with Kopitar. Do we really think Quick's going to end his career in a different uniform? Like, what if he's not done? And if that's the case, do we think that they'd run it back with Quick and Cal again?
Now, I want to ask you a quick question.
Yeah.
Quick is more vocally active with him wanting the starter spot, not like, hey, he doesn't want to give it up. He's got the ornery, like, I'm not going to give this up to a kid type thing. Obviously, Kopitar hasn't had anybody challenge him ever. So, like, that's not really hasn't been on his mind. So I don't know how he would react. But Quick has openly been said, like, hey, like, I'm not giving this job to Cal Peterson.
So the
like,
reason I guess where I'm going with that is for me, I don't think they're going to, because if they trade, that means Cal's not here, right? They're going to have to get rid of Cal. If you're going to make a trade or sign somebody in free agency, that probably means you're not keeping Cal around at $5 million. So if you're trading him, if he's presumably coming off a horrible season, what are you getting for him? So I don't think that's an option in terms of trading him. Would they waive him? Would they buy him out? Boy, I just don't see that as likely. It seems like pretty poor asset management if the Kings were to decide to do that. And I don't know, how bad can it be? He would have to be like Philip Grubauer bad, I think, that we be having this discussion. I mean, I don't know. It's hard to say. But the reason I asked to bring Quick up is if Cal has another mediocre season, and Quick is not ready to retire, and maybe they bring Quick back at another cheap deal, and that they run it back with the two again, especially if Quick is showing competency. Otherwise, I think it may be more likely it's free agency, because again, I think if you're making a trade, if you're making a trade for an NHL goaltender, I don't see how you also keep Cal. I have made the case to where I would look to that college free agent market. I mentioned the name of Portillo in Buffalo. They just signed Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen. Buffalo did.
Whoa.
Yeah.
That was impressive.
I don't even know if that's right, but they just signed him. He's in Rochester in the AHL. They have Devin Levy as their big goalie prospect. So Portillo could be a player that he's going back to college. And if he doesn't sign, perhaps that's somebody that the Kings could go after and get into this organization. So I could see something like that. I'd be a little surprised if they traded for an NHL goalie, because that just means they would probably be buying out Cal. And I don't know. I guess I'd be a little surprised. Russ, I don't know what you think about that.
So Russ, before I let your decision come in, these are the potential free agents in 2023. Right? Obviously, Jonathan Quick, Varlamov,
too, actually.
Yeah, Varlamov, Ben Bishop, Frederick Anderson, Jonathan Bernier,
I'll end it
Cam
for you,
Talbot,
right
Jari, Khudobin. What do you think?
I'll end it for you right here, though. It's okay. So if you're trading Cal Peterson, it's because you think that Jonathan Quick more than likely can kind of sustain his production that he had last year, and for maybe 2 more years, hopefully 3 more years, and you bring in like a serviceable backup or maybe you eat up the contract that Cal had, which would be a buyout.
Why wouldn't you trade away Cal to bring in a free agent that could be the starter and have Quick be the backup, because he's 37?
I would. So this would be my thing. I would wait to see what the Kings had in the farm first before I make that move. Okay. I would give players like Valta a shot, Ingham a shot, Rennick a shot. You got to see what you have in all those, because I mean, we can't just think about their draft position or their production in the AHL and automatically assume they're not going to be productive NHL goalies, because those players have sometimes just figure it out when they get to the NHL. And a lot of these goalies that the Kings have showed pretty good sustainability in some pro leagues in some of these games. I mean, David Rennick came in a couple of games last year and looked really good. So I think the Kings have to get to a point. Let's say that if Cal Peterson does get to a point where he's not being productive and it's kind of slipping off, and you don't really see him ever getting back to that level he was maybe what they were hoping to get, you have to bring up a player like Rennick or Villalta and see what they have first, with Quick still around, where you can kind of lean on Quick a little bit more. And then also you're kind of seeing what you get in some of these young players to maybe see what you can have. Maybe you find a diamond in the rough before you make that drastic move to trade for a starting goalie or even try to sign one.
And at the end of the day, I'm expecting Cal to play this contract out. Like you're not trading him, because if he truly is that bad, nobody's going to want him, and then you're buying him out. And I just would be surprised to see the Kings buy him out. I don't know. He would have to be. It would have to be a really bad season.
Okay. Would you see the Kings trading away a first in a high draft in 2023 or 2024 to get a premium
Never.
goalie prospect? No.
Never.
Okay.
No.
All right. I think that's it here. Let's go with Richard, who has 17 questions. We'll start with: will the Kings make a
Love
big
it,
trade at the
Love you, Richard.
Will the Kings make a big trade at the deadline?
Yes.
I think yes, they should, because we all expect them to be in the playoffs, right?
The Kings
Yep.
trade for Travis Sanheim at the deadline. Book it.
I like it.
All right.
I like
All
it.
right.
It's a good shout.
Who would you want to face in the first round of the playoffs?
Ooh.
He says
Stupid
the
Oilers.
stupid Oilers. Them
Um,
stupid Oilers.
Boy, that's a good question. I don't want to face any of them. They all present their own issues. I'll say Edmonton, but I don't feel great about it.
I
So if the
think
Kings
I think
face
I would like a little bit of revenge, right? Like
Yeah,
you could assume that if the Oilers get number 1 overall, and then we play the Vegas Knights, or you could assume that Calgary gets 1 overall. We play the
I think
Oilers.
Calgary's winning the division. So.
Yeah, so like all those guys, like, man, I would love to put my foot on the face of the Vegas Golden Knights. I would love to get revenge on the Oilers. I think all tracks lead to revenge tour.
Yes.
2022, 2023 playoffs, and I'm down for it.
Yeah, the Vegas Golden Knights or Oilers, of course, would make just
Revenge.
They would be great. Hopefully, one of those is the wild card, and the Kings are the first seed or even the 2 seed or 2 seeds. So yeah, those two teams.
All
would
right,
make some
if we
for some
win
fun.
first overall, what Central team do you want to squash if they make the wild card?
Probably the Blues.
Me, it's
maybe?
Dallas, because the fact that every time I go to an effing Dallas game, the Kings lose in overtime or the third period or with an injury. I was there for the Doughty injury. I was there for the double overtime loss. I would hope that they drop kick Dallas right in the teats. Like, that's what I hope for, because I can't stand watching my team lose live. I just can't do it.
I like a lot of the Central teams, so it's hard for me to say. I would probably pick Dallas, though, actually, if I had to.
Minnesota would be a fun kind of, I
Be a
guess,
fun
storyline. You have Fiala, probably Brock Favors will
Yeah.
be playing for the team. That would be an
Kaprizov
interesting
owns us,
storyline,
though,
too.
so
I know.
he has our number there. All right, so I can't even fit this in the question anymore because the fact that he's got so many. So I took it away there. But how many points do you expect the Kings to finish with this season? Triple digits is what my expectation is. I know we're so close. That's a little, like, that's kind of a like a great, but I think triple digits with the addition of Fiala and Doughty playing a full season, and you're hoping Cal Peterson gets back to his realm. I think that you're looking at, triple digit points.
Go ahead, Russ.
Go ahead, Joe. No, go ahead. I'm processing something.
I don't think it's a guarantee that they're going to get more points, but I think this division is going to be very close. Like, I don't know if Calgary gets 111 or Edmonton gets 110. I think they're all going to be right around that kind of low 100s to 96, 98 again.
I don't know if there's an election for the mayor of Rochester, but you're giving a very political answer here. Come on, get a little spicy for us, Joe.
I'll say it. I'll agree and say triple digits, like 100. But because I don't think the Kings are going to win the division. I think they can, but that wouldn't be my pick to win the division. So I'm not going to go to like 105 or 110. Okay, so I'll say 100. Right. There. How's that?
That's better. That's better. You're not to knowing the NHL line there.
You're seeing my, like, I was thinking out loud, right?
Yeah. The cogs are turning. The cogs are turning. Russell, if you're not watching, if you guys are listening to this the next day, you're not seeing Russell look at his computer screen. He's getting all the analytics ready. What do you think, Russ? What do you think, Russ?
So I was trying to do the math. So I went back to the 2019 standings because that was the last time before last year that they played a full NHL season, and the Flames won the division with 107 points. The Golden Knights actually were the third seed, and they made it with 93 points. So Kings were the third seed, I think, or second seed, and they made it with 99. And what was Edmonton?
Third and 99.
Oh, the Kings were third, and Edmonton 104. So we talked about how the Pacific Division is probably going to be better this year. So you're probably looking at 94 points being good enough to probably make the playoffs. And with some of these other teams like Vegas and Edmonton's going to be really good, and Vancouver's probably going to be better. I think you're looking at probably 97 points for the Kings. I think it would be a good year. And I don't know. I think it'd be hard for them to sustain another 100-point season as much as I would love to see it. But I'm going to say 97 points.
So everybody out there, his Twitter handle's at NHL Russell, and you can tell him how much dog crap is his prediction there all day on Twitter. No, just kidding. I kind of agree with you a little bit.
I think Russ is right that I think the leader in the division is probably not going to be as high as like 110, 111. I do think that comes down a bit, but I think the Kings can be in the hunt for the second seed in that division, which would be maybe right around 100. And I think, third would be, higher 90s anyway. So, but we'll see. It's hard to say.
Yeah.
Well, something to watch.
I think the Kings. Go ahead.
Yeah, something to watch this year too is going to be the Connor Bedard sweepstakes and what some of these teams do, as opposed to, are they just going to throw in the towel like super early and throughout the whole year and try to get the number one overall pick? I mean, Anaheim, they were competitive a little bit last year, but is it going to be beneficial for them to be kind of like this middling team? I mean, especially like another team like San Jose and the Kraken too, even. So, I mean, you could see some of a bigger discrepancy between the top and the bottom of some of these standings.
I think it's only San Jose. I don't think the other teams are going to be in that mix, in my opinion. I do think Anaheim is much more competitive than, I think they're too good to be that low. Like, I don't think they're going to be good in terms of like a playoff team, but I don't think they're that bad. Like, there's too many teams that are that bad. And I think the only team in the Pacific that has even a chance to be as low as your Philly, Chicago, Montreal, Arizona's is probably San Jose. But because they've still got some pretty good players on that team on some pretty big contracts, I don't even know that they're going to be that bad. They're going
to get William Eklund and all those guys. I hope that San Jose gets last place and then they lose in the lottery.
So do I. Yep.
Yeah, that's pettiness. That's pettiness at its purity.
If they got Connor Bedard, oh my God!
They're bad. Listen, they're bad.
But even if they lose in the lottery, they get Sixten Funquist's favorite player, Leo Carlson, right? So
yes, or Mitchell.
Yeah, they're gonna get a player. Jael comes in here and I say just under 100. We have a young team, and many of the players need to earn their spot. 97 is fair.
Yeah,
I think that you're looking at a team who the points. Obviously, I'm saying, put your sack on the table and get 100 or whatever, because we need to overproduce what we did last year. But like you said, the rest of the team are getting better. I just want to be a more consistent team, right? Because you saw a lot of games where we were just dominant 5-on-5, and then you saw a lot of games where it didn't even look like we knew how to play hockey, right? And I think the addition of Kevin Fiala and like the trickle downonomics, so to speak, of the 1990s Republicans are giving the rest of the lineup a good foundation there. And I think the team production will be better, especially with Doughty coming back and all that. Let's move it on to the next question. If I can find it in the 17 of these questions here. How awesome would it be for Vegas to miss the playoffs again? Pretty awesome.
Really cool. That would be awesome. I think
that straight vindictiveness. Pretty awesome.
It's awesome. Yeah. No doubt. And real quick on the points, the first Vegas Insider has the Kings at 95 and a half. So high 90s, mid to high 90s.
Fair. Which is a playoff team. That's all you hope. I mean, Kings have shown the ability to play really well on the road. So, I mean, for the Kings to have another successful year, if they make the playoffs and maybe make a little noise in the playoffs as well, I think that would be a successful year. I don't know. I think maybe we'll have to have that conversation in the next pod or so about whether we think the team is a playoff or is a Stanley Cup team yet.
It's not a playoff team according to those odds, because the other three teams in the Pacific are higher than those 95 and a half, according to the odds makers on that list. Vegas is over 100. Edmonton's over 100. Calgary's over 100.
I think in the West they're like seventh among the teams.
So it'd be a wild card. They'd be in a battle for a wild card at 95.
So they're pretty much expecting Vegas to be back to where they were, Calgary and Edmonton to be once again the top. Yeah. So, I mean, that makes sense. I mean, with everything that's gone on in the offseason, and last year the Kings were kind of like a surprise Cinderella team that not many expected to be there. So, yeah, I mean, they maybe won some games that they probably shouldn't have won, and they kind of fought through a lot of diversity and everything. So, I mean, or adversity, and then hopefully you see that again this year. But yeah, just you want to see some consistency and a little bit more of a production from the younger guys, really.
And for sake of accuracy, Vegas was 97.5, not 100.
So the last question here is, if you could design your own retro jersey, what logos and colors would it be? And I think here I'm thinking back on it, and obviously I'm recent hockey fan, so like I haven't had that like the heart tugs on a lot of these old jerseys. But you know what I really like is I've been a baseball fan for a long time, and I like the cursive of a lot of the old jerseys, the Brooklyn Dodgers jerseys. If they could do a cursive Los Angeles across the chest with the typical gold and purple, I think that would be sweet. Like just a kind of a combination jersey, not really an emblem, because I think the home plate emblem has really kind of run its course, but just a cursive Los Angeles across the front. Not only for hockey fans, because a lot of hockey fans like to collect sweaters, but you're bringing in baseball fans, you're bringing in basketball fans, because and the NBA has done that a little bit. You're getting more people into the game. I think it would be a unique retro jersey to bring in that Los Angeles cursive across the front. I kind of think that would be a kind of a cool idea.
I like that. I'm biased toward I love the old Imperial Crown logo on the old purple and gold unis. So I guess if I were to get creative, and now full disclosure, you don't want me creating anything. I'm colorblind. I have no idea what's going on or what goes with what. So don't ask me. I would say though, I'd love to see the Imperial Crown on maybe more of the current colors. I think some sort of mashup like that could look cool. Get rid of the silver buckets. The chrome buckets, I should say, but I love that old crown. I cannot stand you were nice about it. I can't stand the home plate logo. I've never liked it.
I would love to see the crest from the early 2000s logo with the lion wearing sunglasses on a black and white jersey. I think that would be absolutely epic.
I'm glad in the moment, I think I didn't like that crest. But as I look back on it, I'm like, and you see like pictures and highlights and stuff like that was a cool jersey. It's
funny because like when you wear it, so like when you wear the jersey, I didn't start playing hockey till I was like 15. So when you wear that, I think that jersey came out they were around, whatever. But when you wear it, it's like this huge crest on your chest. And it's not like the most like movable object when you're moving around. So I can only imagine how it was when you're like playing hockey and you like bend over and you have this like fold right here in your chest when you feel like that huge crest. But I mean, I absolutely love the design of the cross sticks and the lion with the sunglasses on, which is just it's just a cool little detail. I would love to see that in a black and white kind of aspect what the Kings have had in the 90s too. I think that would be a cool little mix.
Or just bring back the Burger King jersey.
Yeah, or just do that. And that one's got some controversy tied to it. Everyone seems to love it, or everyone seems to hate it, but it's fun.
It was different, that's for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, we have one more question that's coming in late in the chat. Connor Rubin, thank you for joining us throwing a little question at us. Over under on Artie parties. And I'm going to set the over under here. I think I'm going to do it pretty well. If people don't remember, 80 games played, 14 goals, 13 assists at 12 minutes and 12 and a half minutes of ice time. Obviously moving up a line. Hopefully he gets more power play time. I'm going to set the over under at 22 and a half.
Goals or points? Oh, goals. Artie party. Sorry, I thought that's an Artie points. Yeah. My mistake.
Yeah. Goals. 22 and a half over under. I think that's pretty fair. What do you guys think? Because he only had 14. So that's quite a bit of a jump. Over under 22 and a half.
I am going hard on the over. I say he scores 30 goals this year. Maybe me being ambitious and a little bit biased too, because how he plays and
I like the hard takes. I like the hard takes.
I am super, super, I guess, forward on or expecting Arthur Kaliev to have an excellent year this year. I think he produces at least 30 goals.
I'm going to definitely go under 30. I would go under 25. I'll go slightly under. I'll say he gets 20. And the only reason is this. Todd McClellan is
I know where this is going.
patient to a fault sometimes with the younger players. And I just think, and I'm not, he's going to, I don't know, he has to trust Arthur Kaliev, right? And I think that the season that Arthur Kaliev had last year was a great one for him. All things considered, he played in the fourth line. He adapted to the role. He improved his 200-foot game. So I do think he went a long way to earn that. But it's hard to say where we're all penciling him into the third line next to Quentin Byfield. I don't know. That's not a guarantee. He could very well start in the fourth line next to Blake Lizotte again because they played well. And maybe that's where Todd McClellan wants to see him start there again and earn that trust again. So that's the only reason that would hold me back is I think that it's a slow process with McClellan, and maybe something opens up if Arvidsson is going to miss some time where he gets an early shot with Deneau, but that would be my only reason as to why I think it could be under. Is I still am not 100% sure where the opportunity comes if we're all hoping that he plays with Byfield and they both get much more power play time. But I don't know how much of like a guarantee that is.
So the word I was looking for was bullish. Like I'm very bullish on his year this year.
Yeah.
And the reason for that is because I think that he will get that ice time. Is he going to be a 30-goal scorer if he's averaging 12 minutes a game? More than likely not. But I think that McClellan, it would be a miss if they didn't start utilizing him more and featuring him more on the power play. And
At the least,
that's where he's going to find a lot of his production because, I mean, just look at his shot is, I mean, it's one of the best in the NHL, and that's his primary weapon. So if they can find a way, especially with Jim Hiller, the new assistant coach, if they can find a way to utilize that resource with Arthur Kaliev, I think there's a chance we see him score maybe like 10 power play goals this year. I mean, that's kind of what, I mean, Dustin Brown found all those goals just on the power play, but now with Arthur Kaliev, if they can find a way to feature him, you can find some of those power play goals he wasn't getting last year, and then maybe get him a little bit more minutes 5-on-5 where he can maybe score like 20 or so even strength goals, and then he adds all that with the power play production too. So that's why I'm more bullish on him, and I don't think 30 goals is too far off.
I'm bullish on the player. It's just if the opportunity I'm unsure about.
So 10 power play goals would give him 14 or would give him 18 on the season. So he'd have to have a lot more 5-on-5 as well. I'm going to go slightly under. I think it's going to be 21, 22, somewhere in there. I just think that it would have to be, like you said, a tide that raises all boats in the Byfield and Kaliev region. I would say slightly under, but I wouldn't be surprised with 30 plus. I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, I mean, if you take away Adrian Kempe's even or empty net goals, how many do you have? Like 6, I think, or something? He's not a 30-goal scorer.
Where is West Coast hockey in this?
Russell.
I hate when people bring that up.
So, well, I appreciate you guys listening in. We've hit our boiling point here. Appreciate all the fans who submitted their questions. We love you guys. Thank you guys for listening, inserting this, reading our columns, putting the effort in. We all love, the LA Kings here and hoping for a great season. And it's good that we got some debate going on. We love your questions coming in here. Mm-hmm. So go check out hockeyroyalty.com. Articles coming out every single day. Please like, follow, and subscribe. Tell your friends to like, follow, and subscribe. Tell people on the street who have a phone to like and subscribe to hockeyroyalty.com because we're trying to grow this bad boy to Kings fans everywhere. So thank you guys so much for all that. Coming out with podcasts every week. Hopefully we're going to starting to get some guests on here to get you a little bit of extra content outside of our pretty faces and lovely voices. Gentlemen, it's been a wonderful time here. Thank you guys for coming in. Good seeing you guys. And always go Kings go.
Good Kings.